Welcome back to the Live Loud Life podcast. My name is Dr. Antonio, your host of the podcast, and I have my lovely wife. Say
hi.
Hey. We're trying to get more podcasts where we're both on talking about different things, but today we are going to be talking about the first week in review of the 75 Hard Challenge that we have been doing here at the beginning of 2022. So we're kind of just spitballing this. We kind of have some ins and outs that we, both of us have kind of talked about. And then we're just going to kind of rap about it together and see what works well for you guys. If it's now, and one of the big things we want to talk about is like, this is like any other challenge, right? We're going to talk about just the pros and cons of doing challenges in general, not necessarily like it has to be the 75 hard, although we've been enjoying it thus far, but we're only 9 days in on.
Yeah, I had to look at the calendar. I was like, what days today?
Yeah. So we're only 9 days in on 75. And we're also just right before this, we were mapping out a wedding we're going to. We're mapping out a conference we're going to in Vegas. So we have a lot of very difficult roadblocks or hurdles, if you will, coming up that's going to make this 75 hard, very hard on those times. So we'll see what happens. So without further ado.
Well, let's talk about what 75 hard is, first of all, right? So it's 75 days in a row. If at any point in time you do not get one of these daily routines into your day, you are supposed to start back over, and it's on the honor system, if you will, right? So it's kind of one of those things that if you don't do one of the things, you start back over. We are doing it a little bit different, Antonio and myself. So it is 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each, one of which needs to be outdoors, which in Colorado and in the middle of winter is a little challenging. And a gallon of water a day, 10 nonfiction pages a day, 1 progress picture a day. What else am I missing? Oh, pick a diet and stick to it. So it doesn't have to be anything in particular. It could be paleo, it could be keto, it could be whatever version of something that you're trying to get rid of and shift and change in your diet. And then what else? Oh, no sugar, no alcohol.
Yep.
Did I get it all?
I think that was it. Yeah.
I mean, we should know this by now because
it's not, and that's the thing. It's not meant to be very complex. It's meant to just be very simple and encouraging you to be consistent, which we're going to get into the consistency mentality and mindset. But, some of the nuances, like Nichelle had mentioned, like diet, it could be keto, it could be paleo, whatever it is. Our diets are, pretty spot on. I would say over the last end of the year, we kind of, with holidays and everything, as most people do. But, it's one of those things when you look at, 85% of the time, 90% of the time, our diet's pretty spot on. And when we say spot on, we're not counting macros, we're not counting calories or anything like that. We eat meat, we eat a ton of veggies and occasional grain, which might be rice, maybe bread, occasional sugar. Last year, again, at the holidays, it was more, but outside of occasional dairy with cheese and, creamer within our coffee. But outside of that, the main premise is meat, vegetables, and fruit. I didn't mention fruit. So we're not following a keto diet. We're not following a paleo diet. We're just doing what we've been doing, but eliminating some of the other things, which would be sugar and alcohol. Mine more so beer and alcohol. And then definitely taking out the sugar.
And what, like we said, so keto and paleo are tough for people to keep long-term in their life. A lot of times you hear people going on keto for a couple months or paleo as a challenge. And there are people who will do it long-term, but in general, they're not. And so our diet in our family is something that's sustainable. So yes, sometimes we put feta on our salads, but are we just slicing off cheese and eating it every day? No, we're not. And so we're looking into what do we want to shift and change other than being a little bit more strict with sugar, keeping that out, being a little more strict with alcohol, keeping that out for the challenge. But then I was diving in specifically for my body, being like, what are some things that maybe don't do as well for my body, but I'm in a habit of? And so I'm getting rid of rice cakes, things like that. What else am I getting rid of? That's the main thing for me. Other than that, it's sticking to not doing sugars, not being tempted by the junk food that maybe on the weekends when you're at a coffee shop, you're like, let me go grab that scone. It's like, well, not going to do that for the 75 days. So it's not being crazy strict, but that's because we already had a diet that was pretty darn good to begin with. Now with working out, I've shifted mine to doing 20 minutes of outdoor, and it can be longer, but at least 20 minutes outdoor and then 25 minutes indoor. And the main reason for that is I just don't feel like I have the capacity and time for it right now. And I just want to pick something I could be consistent with. So the outdoor in Colorado was a little challenging because I have the kids a couple times a week, and I just wasn't sure if it'd be snowing if I could get 45 minutes in outside while parenting. So that was kind of one of the big decisions there, but it's all about change and being consistent. And so that's fitting in more than I was doing.
Yeah. So just piggybacking off one of the diet things, like for those of you that are in a position where you feel like your diet's like, well, I don't know what I would change. My diet's really good. It's just, this is an opportunity for you to run a fine comb through things, just tighten up some things, go through that audit process. That's really, what you can use that for. And then for the working out, I'm attempting to do the full, which is 45 minutes, 2 45-minute workouts a day, one of which that needs to be outside. So far, with the exception of 1 or 2 days, which I think this weekend we did them, which were there a little later, I've been waking up every morning at 5:15 or 5:30 and doing an outdoor workout. Now, like what Nichelle said, is Colorado had a crazy warm December. And, as we were planning for this and lining up for this, it seemed fine. It was like, oh, we have some 40, 50 degree days. And then of course, the day before this all goes down, we get a, massive amount of snow, so on and so forth. So not running for a long time and then taking your first run in a bunch of snow was quite difficult, but that's what's harder. So one thing that we want to encourage people, because when we were highlighting this challenge to some friends, some patients, so on and so forth, the workout the workout program or caveat, whatever you will, it's very daunting to most people. So we encourage this is like, hey, the whole point is to not say you have to do the 45 forever. We know this challenge says 2 45-minute workouts, but realistically, we just want you to make positive changes, and everyone else is in a different season of life. So as Nichelle mentioned, she's with the kids 2 full days. And if it's a blizzard, it's kind of hard to get the whole family out to get your quote unquote outdoor workout in. So, we're trying to be not lenient to a detriment, but just understanding that there are certain seasons of life or circumstances which would make something not possible, especially when you're talking about parents trying to get on board with something like this. So we're encouraging everyone to just like, okay, well, what would realistically work well for you? We want you to be moving. So Nichelle's doing 20, 25 each time. What was it? So that totals 40 to 45, 50 minutes, right? So we're telling everyone, it's like, hey, you have at least 30 to 40 minutes to move every day. Everyone has at least 30 to 40 minutes to move every day. So even if it was just one workout for 30 to 40 minutes a day, we think that's great. Take everything else and complete that and do the 30 to 40 minutes, especially if you haven't been working out every day. That's going to be a huge amount of progress, or it could be 2 15-minute workouts, whatever that might be. So, it just comes down to moving more, right? We're trying to get you guys to move more in a positive way. And when you set some parameters around it, which is all the 75 hard challenges, is this parameters, then it makes you much more accountable.
Let's dive into pros, cons, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was going to say the pros, talking about parameters, is it helps build like consistency, right? So what needs to be accomplished every day. Every single day, it's the exact same rule. So what I have found to be a huge pro for me is the guidelines of set rules. And it's not changing every day. This is what you do every single day, and it makes it very easy to digest. So that's my big pro. Do you have a big pro for yours?
I mean, big pro's consistency. The con that I have is more that there's certain things within the specific 75 hard that I've wanted to change, and I understand why they are in place. But the reason why I modified them, so for instance, progress picture. For me, I'm like, I get that it's just the act of consistency. And so for me, I actually swapped that out with doing a post on social media for our business to get in the habit, because that's what this is all about, is a habit forming, starting to form a better habit with how you eat, how you move, what you're drinking, reading more, just taking care of yourself in all levels. And so for me, I was like, I don't really want to take a progress picture every day, even though it's part of 75 hard. So I'm going to shift that to something else that can be really advantageous for me to get into the pattern of, something I've been wanting to do. So the con for me with this type of challenge is sometimes I look at the parameters and I'm like, I don't really like them. And so I shift them, not to make life easier on myself, just to make it something that fits more of what I want to do. Do you have a con for this one?
A con in my mind, at least the first week, the biggest con for me is just the time commitment. Being business owners and parents, it does take a lot of time. And that's where, we had a lot of people who were worried about doing it or getting into it just because of the time commitment. And the reason why I'm doing it and committing to the time commitment is so that I can better allocate my time, right? So we all have the same amount of time. It's what we do with it. And I know in the past, and this has been said in many different ways, when you're bored or you don't have something to do, that's when you get into other things that maybe aren't as productive. So now I really don't have the time to, go down the rabbit hole of certain things, if you will. So this just helps me better structure. Now I know I have to get in a workout every single morning. Otherwise, if I don't get that early one in, then it's much harder throughout the day. So I think that's been the biggest challenge or con for me, is just the sheer amount of time commitment thus far that it's been. But that's going to spin off as a positive.
So let's go into how can you be more successful with the challenge, and what are things that would create roadblocks? So we already talked about the roadblocks. So you have a challenge that's, whether it's dietary, movement, and you're looking at what could cause a roadblock in that. Well, getting sick would be one of them, right? Because you are really ideally moving a ton when you're sick. You're letting yourself move a little bit, but really just rest and recover. Another big roadblock, is, like we said, was traveling. So travel that is needed for work, like our conference, travel that is needed, such as the wedding that we're going to. So there's some things that can be roadblocks that are in there. Are there any other big roadblocks you can think of? I guess mentally, mentally with these challenges, that's a big roadblock. Like, are you mentally tough enough? Because that really comes into play when you're talking about these longer time spent working out, or when you see other people eating certain foods around you and you're like, oh, I just want a bite of it. And that gets really tough. So that's a big, big roadblock it's oftentimes a bit harder than just, oh, I have a trip.
Well, and yeah, so if you look at, there's, so Andy Frisella is the one who created the 75 hard challenge. If you just Google 75 hard, you're going to see a ton of podcast episodes on it, a bunch of social media posts on it. And even he himself will say it is a mental challenge. Like, the whole point, this is a mental challenge. Like, your workouts can be harder. It doesn't say the workouts have to be crazy intense. It just says you have to do 2 workouts. And again, like Nichelle was saying, it's all these itty bitty pieces, but compounded together make it hard. And it's the mental aspect of creating the actual habit. And I think above all, like you had mentioned, consistency, you're seeing obviously the themes kind of unfolding time and time again, right? That in turn creates habits, and then the habits turn into a better lifestyle, so on and so forth. So the expectation of this, not expectation, but maybe the hope, some might have an expectation, is that this will bleed out into other areas due to all that. And those roadblocks, just like anything else, like, we know roadblocks will always come up. You're always going to hit another challenge and another challenge. And it's what you do when you hit those challenges to remain consistent that's going to pay off time and time again down the road.
And for some, I'm reading a book right now because of this challenge, and I'm getting through quite a bit of it, because when you read 10 pages a day, sometimes it flows into more than that because you're into it. It's called The Power of a Moment. And it talks about a lot of different things, but one of them is, where's that peak at? So if you're always eating well, or you're always just eating a certain way, and you're always moving a certain way, maybe it's 20 minutes and not 100 and how many? Oh, I guess 90 minutes a day, not 150. I don't know what's getting that number. 90 minutes a day. If you're just kind of average sitting there, you're going to see very average results. But if you suddenly are like, I'm going to do this 75 hard challenge, or I'm going to do this challenge with my gym, you have this moment that starts becoming a peak. You're challenged to be like, I want to do more. And then you'll probably see an outcome mentally for yourself or an outcome physically that's more than if you just stayed at that level point, just like in the grasslands. You don't go up that peak. So this is the power of a moment right here, is that we've just started and embarked on 75 hard, and we're going for that peak, that moment that we'll remember, that we'll look back on. Remember when we did this in 2022? There were so many things that happened because of that. It'll be a memorable moment in our fitness. It'll be a memorable moment in our diet. And I really like that book already because it talks about the power of the moment. And I see this challenge as being a peak in that. So let's flow into what are the things that can make this challenge successful for yourself.
Well, I want to add something to that too, because one thing I love the peaks and the valleys kind of analogy, if you will, because one thing that I've said time and time again before is, and we say it because of our philosophy and movement, so on and so forth, is a body in motion stays in motion, right? So even though you might not be what seems to be like going into a valley or a rut, if you're just kind of doing the status quo as life is evolving, and if you're not evolving and continuously evolving, as you get older, we get weaker, we lose muscle mass, all of these things as life goes on. If you're not continuously growing and reaching for that next peak, you're actually going backwards down into a valley, right? So we want to encourage, and different seasons of life, you're going to have a different peak or whatever you're striving for. It doesn't have to be 75 hard, but by taking the application and putting it into something else, you've laid the foundation or the groundwork to be able to climb a new peak or a pyramid. What was your question again? What helped make you successful?
Yes.
So first and foremost is planning it out, right? So going into this, like for me at least, like I think I have 6 weeks of workouts planned. So again, removing decision fatigue, all of these different things, like knowing what you're getting into, trying to map out, trying to plan your days. As parents, you definitely have to be a little bit more adaptable. But talking about being adaptable as a parent, okay, I know I have to do this workout. I know it's going to take 20 minutes. And when you see a moment, like you got the kids down or the kids with a snack or whatever that is, you're like, cool, I can nail this out, right? Whereas if you didn't have it planned out, then you'd be trying to set that up and then you lose that opportunity. So planning and setting up, in my mind, really helps make this successful, for one. Anything you have?
I mean, I think more than that, in my opinion, especially if you live with someone, it's being on the same page with them. So I was just kind of so if I wanted to do 75 hard, but knowing that Antonio was going to do it, I personally wanted to be there to support them, knowing that if I was going to make different food choices or not move or not have that extra push to want to do it, it would be harder for him. Not saying he would not do it, he would, but that would be easier for my partner. And that goes with anything in your household, whether it's movement or, choices that you're choosing with like how you're spending your time on your computer or your phone or what you're eating. All those things get really influenced by those around you. And so finding somebody, if you don't live with somebody, a friend, somebody else like that, to hold you accountable, to be there with you with a lot of your actions throughout the day, because it helps to have that accountability. And it just helps to also have that person who's going alongside it with you that you are near. So if you live with somebody and they're not also doing the 75 hard or doing the challenge you're doing, it can be really nice to invite them in onto some version of it, because it's just that extra camaraderie, the extra conversation that you can have together at night if you do choose to do it.
Yeah, no, that's obviously huge. People talk about intentional community, accountability, all of those things. Like not going through something this challenging or difficult by yourself really makes a big difference. So vital component. I think the other thing too is just, understanding that, like most things, like this is a marathon, right? You can't just tackle this and go in with this kind of gung-ho nature of just like, I'm going to just, destroy this. Especially if you're kind of like a couch to 5K mentality right now, where you haven't been doing a lot. There's just understanding like this is a marathon. Like this isn't intended to be this burnout thing where you're just trying to grind out 75 days. You're trying to make positive changes. And when you come at it with a different different lens with more awareness about what the actual outcomes and goals are, then you don't have to create it like a grind or anything like that, right? So being a little bit more open and aware about what's actually being created allows you to create a more consistent framework, if you will, but just helps you stay on the track of just knowing if you have a bad workout, a bad day, if you're feeling beat up, it's not just that you failed. It's just like, hey, this is how it's going to be. You just got to keep taking that next step forward, or your workout, you're going to just deload and make it super light today. Like today was Sunday for us. While we work out consistently, doing it every day now, and me doing it twice, or both of us doing it twice a day now with different things, is our bodies felt a little beat up and a little tighter. And so we listened to our bodies today, and we did more of a mobility yoga flow routine, which honestly made me feel great, and it helped me kind of re-energize and feel much more ready to tackle this next week. So I think we talked on most of the topics. We wanted to keep this short. This was just supposed to be a brief review of, our experience in the first week. Obviously, the first week is the easiest. I don't know. Would you say it's the easiest?
I'd say no, because the first week you're having to build those new patterns.
Yeah.
You're probably the most motivated in the first week, but I wouldn't say it's the easiest. I imagine it's going to be, or I feel like in the middle, we'll be in the groove and it'll be kind of easy. We'll be in our flow.
Yeah, I guess it's different for everyone, because I could also see me being in the middle. I'm like, dang, it's only the middle, but I've come so far, but yet there's still so far to go. I don't know, mixed feelings. But yeah, so I don't know. We've both been enjoying it. Whether we, win, whether we complete it or fail the 75, I think already.
Well, we won't fail it. I don't even know why he's saying that.
But. Well, I'm saying if I didn't do the 70, to my mind, failing would be like, I didn't get the 75 hard done in the first go at it. Gotcha. Have to reset, if you will. If we have to reset or whatever that is, in my mind already, this first week has been amazing for both of us, for just recharging us, restarting us and getting us more amped about getting back into a more consistent routine, which is always good after the holidays. But it's actually really fun too to see our kids. We didn't mention anything about our kids. I mean, our 6-year-old Bowden, he wants me to wake him up at 5 a.m. so that he can go run and ride his bike with me. So
and he does it.
He does it. Yeah. Except for maybe 1 or 2 days. He's been out there every single day. There's 2 days where I did sled pulls instead of running because my body hurt, and he was walking along in the snow with me, or he was riding the sled. So it's pretty, these are the changes that we say. We talk about, generational health, and starting with you as you can pass down these traits and these actions and these behavior items to your kids, who will set a good example, hopefully, for their kids, so on and so forth. So what you're doing could have impact down the road. And in our mind is really fun seeing this, in our kids kind of get jazzed and motivated as well.
They're doing yoga with us this morning. Our daughter, she rode a pedal bike, a couple months ago, and now she's getting in the habit of riding it. So she's gotten so much better in just the week because she's been doing laps and laps with us on her bike. So it has been cool to see that. And I think we failed to, we always notice when our kids are modeling poor behaviors, they're saying bad words or responding the way that we would respond and react to things. But we also need to remember they are role models to the amazing things that we do as well. How kind you are to other people, how you move, what you're eating. They see what you're doing and they will copy you. And so if you can set those foundations when they're young, there's nothing better than that.
So that's all we have. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, before we end it, I think we should say, if you haven't started 75 hard yet, you can start this at any point in time. We just started within the new year. So if you listen to this and we're already halfway through it and you want to join in, you should totally do it. Whether you want to make it 75 days or 30 days for yourself, you should join in at some point and give it a try.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Pick something, pick a different time. It doesn't have to be 75 hard. Take the framework of setting certain criteria, certain rules that you think are obtainable. Here's kind of the different approach I've been taking as well. There's someone on YouTube that I've been following. His name is Dr. Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist up in Canada, but he talks about when making behavioral changes and changing habits. More times than not, we do things that are too big, and then we get discouraged, and then we just kind of fall off the wagon, if you will, right? So he talks about making small, obtainable first steps or goals, right? So the example would be if you haven't bench pressed ever, like it would be dumb to go try to bench 200, 300 pounds, right? So what do? You start with the first rep that you can do that you know you can complete, and then you try to add more to that. Like that's the whole point. If you don't think 75 is really obtainable, like don't set yourself up for failure. Set it for 15 days, set it for 20 days, but ideally over 20 to 30 because that's when I don't know the exact time when habits are formed. I've heard different things. But I think 30 is definitely obtainable. Set some rules, set some criterias, and then jump on board. For those of you who want some accountability, we're trying to keep that accountability within our Facebook group. It's called the Live Loud Life community. Dang, I don't even know the name of our own Facebook page. I'll have to look it up real quick. Hold on. That's embarrassing. It is... Live Loud community page. You just do Live Loud community page on Facebook. A handful of people are doing 75 hard on there. Reach out for questions, accountability. Would love for you to just join the community. We're trying to share some additional resources about what we do from coaching and helping families, so on and so forth. So that could be helpful for you. We're posting our journey on Instagram as well. You can follow us at live.loud.life on Instagram. We haven't posted any of this on YouTube yet. We'll maybe try to get some of that on, but we also have some personal Instagram pages. Nichelle, what's yours?
Dr. Nichelle Gurley _DC.
There you go. You can see she's posting her journey as well and some other stuff, always pertaining to women's health, moms and babies. So be sure to check her out as well. But yeah, so that's our recap of the first week of 75 Hard. We're sticking with it.
Boom.
Boom. All right. Thanks, guys. Live loud. See you next time.